Welcome to Hope is Here. I love people that just overcome incredible obstacles and finding them and letting them tell their story on Hope is Here, so it provides hope for others. And man, I've been inspired by so many people such as Cody Casey and Sherry Matherly, and we've had a guest this week that's really inspired me. And man, if you missed our first two programs with April Ballentine, that's B. April Ballentine, you need to check those out. Those 14-minute podcasts are available at your convenience at our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today. April had ended a 5-year relationship that had gotten unhealthy the past couple of years, and unfortunately her ex-boyfriend just didn't like the rejection and decided to try to end her life, shot her 5 times. Miraculously, she lived. I'm thankful for that. Unfortunately, there were some consequences to the shooting. She has paralysis from the breast down, but she's got a great gift of communication. She's beautiful on the outside and inside, and she has chosen to help thousands over the past almost 6 years now since this happened. And I want to encourage you, man, if you hadn't heard those programs, to go back and check those out at hopeishere.today. You talked about faith and fear yesterday, and man, if anybody could be in fear, you could do that, April, but you've chosen to trust God with your one and only life and stand in faith. And yet, man, that faith's been to the test a couple of times. Tell about one time when you had car trouble after a UK football game, out of all times and places.
Yes, so out of all of these years I've been driving and I've been mobile, I have never had a flat tire. So on this day, it was raining, catching dogs. It was the end of a UK football game, and I'm on the main road from the stadium. And I realized I have a flat tire, so I have to pull over because, you know, I didn't know what else to do. And I looked at my daughter, and I was like, I can't even get out to look at it. So at this time, the first thing I want to do is kind of panic and worry and be afraid. However, before I could do that, there was a gentleman tapping on my window, and he said, I'll change your tire. Where's your spare? You know, you want to get off? I want to get you off the road because there's a lot of traffic and it's raining, and I don't want you all to get hurt. So he said, I'll watch you pull up to the gas station right there at Thornton's on the corner and make sure your wheel's not going to fall off. And I said, okay. So as I pulled off his thumb, he put his thumb up, and as I pulled into the parking lot at the gas station, I pulled right to the first curve I could see, and I immediately start looking on my phone. I immediately start going through my emails, trying to see, you know, who is my roadside service with, because I know I have it. But before I could even locate anything, again, there was another gentleman tapping on my window. And this guy looked a little strange, and, you know, I'm pretty protective of myself and my daughter. So I just kind of waved my phone at him like I'm on the phone. And he's like, no, you have a flat, and I want to fix it. So I rolled my window down, and I said, look, you know, I've got a lot of equipment in the back of my van because of, you know, it's because of the conversion, so I can't carry a spare tire. And he was like, well, where is it? And this man didn't live in Lexington. And I said, well, it's at my mother's house across town. He said, tell you what, text me the address, and I'll go get it.
Wow.
And I just looked at him, and I said, okay. So immediately I'm thinking of my mom because, you know, no one's there with her at that time. And I said, Mom, I said, the spare tire in that back room, roll it out on the deck, on the porch, so that this gentleman can get it. I've got a flat, and I'll tell you about it later. And so before she could get the tire out of the room, he was at the door. So he actually pulled the tire out, put it in his truck, came back to me. He said, pull up under the awning. You know, Thornton shouldn't have a problem with me being up under here changing your tire. They've got a bunch of different gas pumps, so I shouldn't be interfering with their business. So before I knew it, it was a 45-minute time span from when I pulled up in that gas station to where he left. He actually finished. So as I turned to say thank you, my hatch was closed on my van, and the gentleman was gone. So I looked at my daughter, and I was like, well, I didn't even really get to say thank you or anything, you know. And I was like, oh, but I've got his phone number, so I'll call him. And I called, and I was like, hey, this is the lady that you just changed the tire, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to do something for you. I said, I don't have any cash, but I can buy you a meal or something. And he told me, he said, you don't have to thank me, because I was glad I was here to help you. All I ask is that you give blessings, that you give thanks, from whom all blessings flow. And he hung up the phone. And that's the last I heard of him. So I knew that was God supporting my faith and letting me know that he would never leave me and he would always protect me.
Well, there's no doubt you definitely knew where that blessing came from, and the Lord sent one of his angels. And just to think of, just can imagine after a UK football game, over 60,000 people trying to exit, and your car stops with a flat tire, and it's raining, and yet you don't even have the tire with you, and because of, like you said, your conversion van, your vehicle, and it's just such a God story. And maybe somebody listening's like, you know, my situation seems so overwhelming, and yet I hope you hear by this story of hope that April has shared, that, you know, God is in the details, and when he sends the right angel, it won't matter if it's pouring rain, if it is a UK football game, traffic trying to evacuate after a game, that, and you don't even have the spare tire, God will provide. And yet, since God's so good, and because you choose faith over fear, you shared another story with me one time when you were out at the park, and you know, you've got a motorized wheelchair, but yet sometimes there's still some obstacles to get around things. Share that story, please, April.
Sure, yes. This was actually my manual wheelchair. I didn't have the power chair at the time. So, but I was very active in exercising, especially outdoors, because the sun at that time and still today takes away my pain. So I said, well, you know, I didn't want to go back across town because I knew I had to pick my dog up from the groomer later. So I said, well, I'll try this park. I've never been in this park before. Didn't even realize they had a trail. I was actually just going to get in the parking lot and just continue to roll myself around, push myself in the wheelchair. And so I get on this trail, and as soon as I started, there's a challenge, and it was about a 3-inch lip in the concrete, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this chair over this concrete? So I figured that out. And I continued to go along the trail, and it was just really nice. And the last little hill was down, so I got to go pretty fast without having to push. And I said, well, I'm going to do it again. But this time I'm going to start from here instead of where that 3-inch lip is. And as I was going along, I realized that I was on an incline. And it wasn't that steep, but it was just enough to really challenge me, and especially just being in a manual chair. And I'm sorry, but I left one part out. When I started off on this trail, I had passed a gentleman in his yard, and he was trimming his trees and stuff. And he acknowledged, and I waved, and I acknowledged. And, you know, when I came back around and I was going up this other way and I reached this incline, you know, I was like, oh, my gosh, you know, I'm trying to hold the chair with one hand and push with the other and switch back and forth. And I wasn't getting anywhere, and I didn't want to fall backwards, or at least roll backwards, because I wouldn't be able to catch myself. And all of a sudden, I see this gentleman running, and he's like, hold on, I'm coming. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, who is this? And, you know, and what's he doing? And as soon as he got to me, he was out of breath, and he looked at me, and he said, you know, he said, I was watching for you because my son is in a wheelchair, and I take him around this trail, and I know it's a challenge for me to push him, so I knew it was going to be almost impossible for you to push yourself up. And I knew that was nothing but God, because I had never been to that park in my life, and I've lived in Lexington all my life except for 8 years. And the gentleman gave me his name. He told me his story. And I was really touched, and he didn't know what he did for me, but apparently he did, because God sent him to me.
Well, there's no doubt he sent you another one of his angels, and my good friend Sherry Matherly, who was actually her husband, who was an alcoholic, was in a domestic situation. He shot her in the head and tried to kill her, and she's still living, but she is such a woman of faith, such as you, and listens to this program regularly. And she was just telling me recently, she said, Greg, I'm just never ceased to be amazed how God is a God of details. And you've shared that God would put somebody at this park who had a son that had, used a wheelchair, and so he was there to protect you, and yet he made that extra effort. And if somebody's listening today, I want you just to see how these people have helped April. And I think everybody wants to make a difference with their one and only life, but they think, well, I can't write a big check, or I can't sing, or I can't preach, or whatever. And yet there's so many ways that you can provide hope for others, just simply by, like this guy at the park, going and making the extra effort. He's even breathing hard to help her get over that little crack there in the sidewalk, that problem there. So I just love these stories of hope where you choose faith over fear. And one of the things, on top of working with Kathy Witt, the sheriff, and with Amanda's trying to help people with domestic violence, you also started a side business, you and your daughter. Tell us about that.
Yes, so with this, I'm trying to create ways to, one, make sure that I can take care of myself when, money runs out, or when it's not possible for me to work, or, the income may be different, or whatever the situation is. I want to make sure that I'm taken care of, and I want to make sure that, my daughter has something to fall back on, and I leave something here for her. So we had the opportunity to purchase Selfie Bar, Kentucky, and so we purchased it at the beginning of the year. And we go around and we do any type of event that you would like. We do weddings, we do receptions, we do birthday parties, get-togethers, festivals, fairs, whatever it is that you would like for us to come to. That's what we do. We do small distance travel. I mean, we could probably go up to 50 miles or something like that as far as distance. But basically, what it is, if you're familiar with the old photo booths that you get in and you pull the shade and then it takes the pictures on a 2-inch strip of paper. So this is now the 2000 era, and it's totally different now. We have the ability to immediately text those pictures over to you automatically, and it comes within like 3 seconds. We have the ability to continue to print the pictures. We create digital frames that has a background. We have the physical backdrops. We have green screens. The potential is limited. We haven't tapped all the way into it because we're still new. But, it's something that we do on the side, and hopefully that it'll continue to be a support for her and I, as we go on.
You guys have got a Facebook page. What is the name of that?
Yes, it's Selfie Bar KY. Selfie
Bar KY. And we're going to put the other contact information if you want to have April come speak to your organization, your church. Obviously, you can tell what a great communicator she is, how passionate she is, how she trusts God. And, man, she's overcome what was meant for evil in a big way, as her life was attempted to be ended. And even though there has been some paralysis that have resulted, she has still chosen to let the joy of the Lord be her strength. So make sure you go to our website, hopeishere.today. You can see the podcast. We'll have her contact information. April, thanks so much for being on Hope is Here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.
CMI is your full-service human resources provider in Central Kentucky. For 15 years, CMI Human Resources has taken great pride in helping organizations and people work. Whether it's employee handbooks or help in filling a position, no job is too large or too small for CMI. Contact the professionals today at CMI Human Resources, 859-296-2800, or online at cmiconsulting.com.